The vault door gleamed under the harsh security lights, an unyielding metal fortress protecting a treasure beyond imagination. But for him, it was just another puzzle, a meticulously crafted challenge waiting to be unlocked. His mind, a labyrinth of calculations and contingencies, whirred with the precision of a fine-tuned machine. Every guard movement, every alarm sequence, meticulously studied and mapped into the strategy. When it comes to crime history, Slick Willie's name is one of the most mysterious and bold. Willie Hawthorne was born in the center of a busy city, and his childhood seemed typical, if not unremarkable. Even though he seemed normal on the outside, he had all the traits of a genius. He was the kind of person whose bold actions would make history books. Even at an early age, Willie has an extraordinary capacity to deceive those in positions of authority. It was when he was just 16 years old that he got into issue with the cops for plotting a daring robbery of a grocery shop that was located nearby. Willie, like a seasoned gambler, enjoyed the rush of the hunt and looked forward to each near call. Most people would have quit up when they realized they were going to be punished, but Willie cherished the thrill of the chase. However, the audacious crime that he committed from the largest bank in the city is what brought him to fame. Having the nerves of steel, Willie and his gang plotted the ideal robbery and were able to carry it off successfully. They made off with cash and jewelry worth millions of dollars after stealing it. The law enforcement officials were perplexed and unable to comprehend how a young and promising individual could consistently outpace them. However, Willie was one of a kind not only due to the fact that he was intelligent, but also due to the fact that he had an incredible talent for evading imprisonment on several occasions. In spite of the fact that there were several near-catch scenarios and close calls, Willie was always able to evade capture by the authorities, leaving behind nothing but a path of uncertainty and rage. His most audacious escape occurred when he was incarcerated at Iron Hole Penitentiary, which is a jail with the highest possible level of security. It seemed as if Willie would be destined to spend the rest of his life rotting away in a cell, since he was incarcerated and there was no possibility of his escaping. However, he never failed to have opposing schemes. The prison guards were taken aback by Willie's daring scheme to escape from the facility. He accomplished it with aplomb, charisma, and unbridled audacity. A daring helicopter escape was arranged by him with the assistance of his devoted supporters who were located on the outside. He escaped from the confines of the prison by flying over the walls, leaving the officials in a state of panic. Throughout the course of many months, Willie managed to keep one step ahead of the authorities by traveling throughout the nation while utilizing a vast array of various identities and disguises. However, he was aware that his good fortune was running out as the net began to get nearer. The events of his past were certain to come back to haunt him at some moment. At the end of the day, Willie was not apprehended by a squad of heavily armed law enforcement officers or a highly skilled team of agents. It was only one mistake, just one moment of hubris. That was the last straw. When he was confined in a dilapidated structure on the outskirts of the town, he made one more desperate effort to flee, but he was confronted by people all around him during his escape attempt. As the shackles were put on and the sirens went off in the background, Willie could only smile longingly. He knew that he would be remembered as one of the best crooks and escape artists of all time. Even though he lost, he showed that real greatness isn't about getting more money or power, but about having an unquenchable spirit of resistance that won't be tamed. So, did Slick Willie live up to his reputation? Were his heists truly works of art or just elaborate blunders? Let us know in the comments below what you think makes the perfect heist. For more dives into the minds of history's most cunning criminals, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Cold steel bars, a heart hammering against the ribs. Tonight, escape wasn't a possibility, it was a necessity. But how? The answer lies not in magic, but in the cunning of a man who defied the impossible. In the 1800s, Jack Sheppard was the most famous thief and robber. In the weeks before his dramatic execution, he was the most famous criminal in London because of how many times he escaped from jail, including 2 times from Newgate. In the early 18th century, Jack Sheppard was born into a poor family in Spitalfields, London. This area was known for having highwaymen and criminals. He learned how to be a carpenter as a trainee. By 1722, after 5 years of training, he was already a skilled worker and still had less than a year to go. He was only 5'4" tall and had a slight build. He was 20 years old. People said that his quick smile, charm, and personality made him famous in the bars of Drury Lane. That's where he met some bad people and started living with Elizabeth Lyon, also known as Edgeworth Bess. He threw himself into this dark world of drinking and whoring with all his heart. He had to give up his job as a builder at some point, so Sheppard started stealing to make more money. His first crime was small-time shoplifting in the spring of 1723. Not long after, he met and became friends with Blueskin, the thug's name for Joseph Blake. His crimes got worse. Between 1723 and 1724, he was caught and jailed 5 times, but he got away 4 times. This made him famous and very popular, especially among the poor. His first escape was in 1723. He was sent to Street Ann's roundhouse for theft, and Bess Lyon visited him there. She was caught and arrested as well. They were sent to New Prison in Clerkenwell together and locked up in a cell called the Newgate ward. The next morning, Sheppard cut his chains off, drilled a hole in the wall, and took out an iron bar and a wooden bar from the window. They got on the ground by tying sheets and blankets together, with Bess going first. After that, they climbed over a 22-foot-high wall to get away. This was pretty amazing because Jack wasn't very tall and Bess was pretty big. His second escape, August 30, 1724. If Jack Sheppard were found guilty of stealing in 1724, he would be put to death. Back then, in Newgate, there was a door with big iron spikes that led to a dark passageway that led to the cell for the doomed. Sheppard filed one of the spikes down so that it would be simple to break off. In the evening, Bess Lyon and Moll Maggot, another prostitute, came to see him. They caught the guard's attention while he took off the spike. He then pushed his head and shoulders through the opening and got away with the help of the 2 women. In this case, his small size worked out in his favor. He wasn't free for long though. The 15th of October 1724 was his last and most famous escape. Between 4 p.m. and 1 a.m. on October 15, Jack Sheppard made his most famous escape, this time from Newgate prison. His handcuffs came off, and he used a bent nail to open the padlock that was holding his chain to the floor. He broke through a few locks to climb up a wall and get to the top of the jail. He went back to the cell to get a blanket, which he then used to slide off the roof and onto another roof next to it. He got out of the house through the front door while still wearing his leg irons. He talked a passing cobbler into taking off the leg irons, but less than 2 weeks later, he was caught because he was too drunk to fight the police. A narrative of all the robberies, escapes, etc. of John Sheppard, written by Daniel Defoe, was so impressed by Jack Sheppard's bold escapes that he hired someone else to write his story in 1724. Sheppard was found guilty and given the death penalty by hanging at Tyburn. This ended his short time as a thief. To show how much people loved him as a rebel hero, women dressed in white and throwing flowers lined the path to his execution. He did, however, have one last big plan to get away. He was going to jump from the gallows. Daniel Defoe and his editor, Appleby, came up with a plan to get the body from the gallows after 15 minutes and try to bring it back to life, since 1 in 1,000 people could survive being hanged. The crowd didn't know about this plan, which was a shame. So that their hero would die quickly and with less pain, they rushed forward and pulled on his legs. That night, he was buried in the street, Martin in the Fields Cemetery. If you enjoyed hearing about Jack Sheppard's daring feats, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what other historical mysteries you'd like to crack next. A cold stone pressed against his cheek, the only comfort in a world reduced to darkness and despair. Each labored breath echoed in the tomb-like silence, a stark counterpoint to the frantic drumbeat of his heart. Claustrophobia coiled around him like a serpent, squeezing the air from his lungs. Yashi Shiratori was born in Aomori, Japan on July 31, 1907. His father died when he was 2, and his mother abandoned him early. He hunted crabs in Russia after working at a tofu store. After failing at various occupations, he gambled to earn money. He was arrested for petty theft in his teens, his first offense. Shiratori first escaped aged 19. Aomori Prison held Shiratori in 1936. After months of learning the guards' routines, he got out by picking his cell lock with the metal wires surrounding the bathroom's bucket for washing and climbed out of a damaged skylight. He laid planks on his mattress to make guards believe he was sleeping before fleeing. After 3 days, police caught Shiratori while he was taking goods from a hospital. He was given a life sentence for running and trying to steal, and in 1942 he was moved to Akita jail. Shiratori was put in a cell at Akita jail that was made just for escape artists. It had high ceilings, one small window, and smooth copper walls that were too close together. Still, Shiratori was able to climb up the walls and see that the wood that held the window bars in place was starting to rot. He would climb up every night to free the vent until he finally got the wood to come off and the window to open. Shiratori knew that the jail staff could hear his steps on the roof, so he waited for a storm to climb the walls and get away. 3 months later, he showed up at guard Kobayashi's house to ask for help in a case against injustice in the Japanese prison system. As he was one of the only people who had shown kindness and respect to Shiratori during his stay in the Akita prison. However, the guard called the police while Shiratori was in the toilet. Shiratori was then caught and sent back to jail. Shiratori was sent to Abashiri prison in northern Hokkaido in the winter of 1943. It was the northernmost jail in the country. He was put into an open cell in the middle of winter while still wearing summer jail clothes. The guards could beat him down whenever he stood up. Shiratori was furious and vowed to get away. To their surprise, he broke his handcuffs in front of them. Later, he was put in handcuffs that were custom made for him. It took an expert almost 2 hours to open them so that he could take a bath once a week. When the guards brought food, though, he always dripped miso soup on the handcuffs and food slot. Over time, this made them rusty, which Shiratori used to break them. Then, on August 26, 1944, he dislocated both of his shoulders, enabling him to fit out of the narrow food slot in his cell door and escape the prison, using a wartime blackout as cover. After living in an abandoned mine deep in the mountains for 2 years, he descended to a nearby village and learned of the surrender of Japan. He was caught again, though, after cutting and killing a farmer who attacked him after he was caught stealing a tomato from his farm. He said it was an act of self-defense. The Sapporo District Court gave Shiratori the death penalty for his past escapes and the killing of the farmer. In the Sapporo jail, he was put in a cell with high ceilings and windows that were only a few inches above his head. However, the prison guards at Sapporo had so much faith in it that they no longer bothered to handcuff Shiratori. And because they paid so much attention to his ceiling escapes, they neglected the floors. In 1947, he dug his way out by making a tunnel with some of the miso soup bowls, placing the dirt in a small pocket underneath the floorboards and crawling his way out. It is said that after a year of freedom, a police officer gave Shiratori a cigarette in a park. He had been beaten and tortured many times in previous jails, and the closest prison guard he knew had turned him. The kindness touched him deeply. In 1948, cigarettes were a luxury item in Japan. It was clear that Shiratori was a runaway prisoner, and he offered to be turned in. In a second trial, the High Court of Sapporo ruled that the farmer had killed himself in self-defense and had not injured or killed any guards during his escapes, just making them feel awful. The judge commuted his death sentence to 20 years for his escapes. Shiratori achieved his Tokyo prison desire too. After 14 years in Fuchu prison, he was released for good behavior in 1961. He returned to Aomori to visit his daughter despite their distance. He lost his wife in prison. For another decade, Shiratori performed odd jobs to survive. He died of a heart attack aged 71 in 1979. If you enjoyed learning about Yashi Shiratori, be sure to leave a like and hit that subscribe button for more incredible stories of daring escapes and legendary figures. In the comments below, let us know who you'd like to see featured next.